I've been getting quite a few questions lately where you've been asking what the aspect ratio means. Some of you have found it on the right hand side when you've been editing on Lightroom. You can press R and you can drag and recompose the picture, and you've noticed that there's a few numbers underneath it and you're not too sure what they mean. And I've also been getting quite a few from people that have been looking to order prints from our website. On the panorama pages, it says either 3-1 or 2-1. So we're going to go over what those mean. And the reason I'm doing it on this channel as well is because it affects the way that I photograph, because it's sort of how it's going to crop afterwards, and you've sort of got to shoot to meet those criteria. And also, some of you have been wanting to print your work, and this is going to affect how much it costs you in the end and how much work you're going to have to do afterwards. So what I've done is I've got the Lego out the attic and we'll have a run through here. So I have three options on my website. I've got the standard, which is 3-2. Then I've got two panoramic sizes. I've got 2-1 and 3-1. But I'm going to show you four different ones here. So the first one is 1-1, this top one here. And you can see that it's one across and one up. With that, you can scale it to any size. So it could be 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters, 13 centimeters by 13 centimeters. It doesn't matter. That's the aspect ratio, and you just multiply it by that. Next up from there, we've got the 2-1. So this is like a short panorama, and all it is 2 across and 1 up. I mainly do the 2-1 panoramas for if the sky isn't that interesting or the foreground isn't that interesting, and you can just get all the good stuff in the middle. Like here's a picture of a Herdwick sheep at the top of Dalcrag. You can see the sheep walking up. There's a few rocks in the foreground near the top of Dalcrag, and off in the distance you can see Scafell. The sky wasn't that interesting, and the bottom part of the foreground wasn't that interesting, so we just got the bit in the middle, and I think it works a lot nicer. Whereas the next one up from that is the 3-1. So it's just 3 across and 1 up. I tend to use this one most of the time for when I'm at the top of a mountain and I'm looking down into the valley. And because I've gone higher, most of the scene is compressed down into that thin strip in the middle. So you can get the top of the mountains and the bottom of the valley and a little bit of foreground. But either side of that, you get a lot of space where it's just either sky or the close foreground, and sometimes it doesn't work that well when you've got that. Here's a picture from inside the priest hole, and I was looking out through the cave opening, and above me and below me it was just dark rock, whereas in the middle you can see all the mountains off in the distance. If I kept this one at the standard size, there would be a lot of space in the bottom and the top where there's no information, and I don't think it added anything to the picture. When I do these 3-1 ratio ones, I do tend to do these ones by taking it as a panorama, so you have to take a series of images and then stitch it together. And when you're out in the field, you got to prepare for that, and you got to sort of work out where your picture is going to start and finish before you start. Then you can make sure you get all the pictures for that scene. But it's a bit of trial and error, but once you've got your eye in, you'll be able to get that shot every time. And it just makes things a bit more interesting sometimes. And then the last one that I use is 3-2. So we go 3 across and 2 up. And this is how it comes out of my camera. And that's my most standard size. I'd say about 80 to 90% of my pictures are at the 3-2 ratio, and it just seems to work. You can get a decent amount of foreground in, a little bit of sky, or you can pretty much do anything, to be honest, whatever fits your needs. And it's quite easy to find frames that fit that ratio. So it's like a 12:8 print, and yeah, it just seems to work. The biggest difference this ratio makes to me is when you come to print. If you're mainly online and you're doing it for your website, like for a banner image, then this doesn't really matter. But when it comes to printing your work, you're going to find it a lot easier if you stick to sort of standard ratios. Whereas if you went onto the cropping tool and you picked a random selection, what you're going to have to do is you'd have to print an image this size, and then you'd have to use a guillotine and slice it down. And depending on how many pictures you're printing out, you could get a lot of variance in the end result. And I've personally never wanted that. And yeah, I think it could cause unnecessary complications. The other thing is, when it comes to framing your work, there's pretty much two things to consider when you're getting the prints framed. You've got the mount around the edge and you've got the frame. And the way this affects the aspect ratio is you can get the mounts cut to fit the picture that you've got. So I've got a 3x2, but you could get, say, a series of 1x3 panoramas going up like that. You could get a 1x1 in the middle, or a 2x3, like just a portrait shot going up that way. So you can make the frames fit the pictures that you've got. What I personally like to do is have an even border around the pictures. So it means that when I get the pictures framed, I have to get these made up in the shop. So I go to the local framers and they make that. But you can go to just a regular shop and you can pick up frames that are ready to put pictures in. This is ready for a 16x12, and depending on what they're going to be used for, these are great too. We're getting a load of family pictures put in these, whereas if it's going into a hotel or something, I like to use these ones. So like I was saying with that off-the-shelf frame, it's easy to go into a shop and find a frame that fits the picture, whereas if you have a less standard ratio, say you've made a 3 across and it's like 1 1/4 up, you're not going to find that on the shelf. You're going to have to get that made up, and it either means you're just going to have to get a mount made up, or you're going to have to get a frame made up, and that's another expense on top. That's the basics of it though, so hopefully you understand that a bit more now. It is quite complicated when you first start, but if you just focus on a few of them and get your head around those, then you can just use them to your advantage, and you can think about it when you're out shooting. But if you want to get any of the pictures that you've seen in today's video, I've got a 10% coupon available on my website at the moment. If you sign up for the newsletter, you'll receive that. Thank you to everyone that's ordered recently as well. It's massively appreciated and it helps keep this channel running. But if you've got any more questions, leave them down in the comments or send me a message and I'll see what I can do to answer those. I'll see you next time.